Welcome back to the Revolution of Being podcast with Angie and Jess. So, today we are continuing our conversation and we're going to talk about awakening beyond the ego, really discovering our truest self. This is a journey. This isn't a quick course on getting from point A, being, an ego driven life, to point Z, which is, starting to embody more of our truest alignment, our truest self. This is really the journey. So we're trying to break it down a little bit. I want to just put a disclaimer in here though, that Angie and I are in the middle of doing this too. And so what I love is that we're having real-time conversations about where we're at, what we've learned, how it impacts us, and how, we feel like our work is going to continue. And at the end of the day, there's no shame in being at any point that you're at. This whole experience is the human experience. And to feel shame is just another indicator light from your ego that you're poking at it and the ego doesn't like it. So when we think about the ego loosening its grip, I want to reframe that and think about it as something is just emerging and space is being made. It's always been there. Our truest self has always been there. We have wisdom if we can be still enough to hear it. We get signals from our body and our mind all the time. And so let's just dive into that a little bit. Have you ever had a moment, either voluntarily or involuntary, where everything went quiet, where everything was still? Maybe you were sitting in nature. I always picture just those moments. You love the North Shore, where you're just kind of in awe of everything. And it's not because you were proving something, but because you were. I just think about that. I had this experience a few years ago. I took myself on a trip to Montana. I wanted to just go stay on a ranch and dive back into something that always healed me when I was young, and that was horses. And so I went out on a limb. I booked a first class plane ticket because I thought, why not? And I went out to this place where I knew nobody. And I had this moment. We had ridden up near the Canada border, and there's this lake, and it's Caribbean blue with white sand beaches. It is a lake, but it's got a high salt content. And so it's just stunning. And so we rode up this hillside, and that's where we tied our horses up and we ate lunch. And I have a picture of all of us sitting on this hillside, eating our sandwiches and just staring in silence at what was around us. And it was so cool because nobody was doing anything exceptional other than being, but we were all so connected and in awe of what we were experiencing. And so just picture that, like a place you've been or a moment you've had when you're just stopped in awe. There's some smell. There's maybe a slight noise. There's something that just calms your inner soul. And I know we all have that moment. So that presence, that stillness, that's you. That is your truest self. That is who you are. It's always been. You're not becoming it. You're just remembering it.
I love that. And I have like the strong urge right now just to keep yawning. I think I'm like energetically releasing a lot of stuff. So if you're watching and I yawn, I'm really sorry. I'm not tired. I'm just like, whew, I need to like breathe some stuff out. Um, it's so interesting because I had something similar when I was 15. And so I know I've talked about this a little bit, but my dad passed away on my brother's 18th birthday back in 2000. My brother has Down syndrome, and it was a horrible, horrible thing. The ego especially was like, how dare this happen on this day and all these things. But it was so interesting because that day, before I ever knew anything happened, and I don't know what time he had passed, he had been found deceased in his place of a likely heart attack. And so, he probably had been gone for several hours before someone realized he didn't turn up to work. And that morning we had a reading period at school. Every morning we'd have this reading time, or at least a couple days a week, I believe. And I just had this I don't like the word download, but that's the best experience to say. I had almost this download of blue skies and the most profound sense of peace I've ever felt in my young little life to that point. And it was just this wow, life is so good. I am so blessed. Wow, just pure, similar to what I had when I had my medicine journey, was just complete awe of the connection, the divinity, pure love. I mean, all I can explain was it was pure love. And, what that was, my dad peeking through the veil, being like, hey, it's okay over here. I have no idea. But it was that stillness and just a spontaneous experience. And again, to people who haven't experienced it, I can't put into human words what that was like. But it was profound. And there are so many opportunities throughout life like that. And you're spot on. When I'm at the North Shore, we mean North Shore of Minnesota, Lake Superior. If you've not gone, don't, because I don't want it to get out that it's a hidden gem. I'm just kidding. Come see it. But it's magical. The energy of that place is just sacred. And I can just go into bliss there. It's away from the city noise, and it's just pure connection with nature and with God. And not that we're not always connected, we are, but I think it's easier to tap in when there's less noise. So anyways, I'm sure, many of you have similar experiences, and as always, love to hear them. So if you're listening to this, watching it, please drop in the comments your experience if you're willing to share, because it's just profound. So, as you were saying, kind of once things go quiet, that stillness is where the magic happens. So when that ego begins to dissolve, and it again happens in phases, we're not talking about suddenly oh my God, my ego's dead. I'm pure spirit. No, this is a continual surrender, right? It can be ego around finances. It can be ego around attachment to a certain emotion, maybe in your relationships. It can be ego around the fear of death, right? The illusion of death, I should say. It's all these different things that ego can really trip us up with. But as you mentioned, it's really tapping into that pure awareness of self. And that's the part that is the observer that doesn't judge. I tell my clients it's that, we think our thoughts, but we're not the thinker. We're not the ones churning and burning in our brain. That's the ego. And when you kind of step out, and the tool I like to use is that pattern interrupt, when you can catch your thoughts and you can just kind of back out and be like, okay, what's my brain thinking right now? What's my brain saying about that situation right now? And then you can kind of become the observer. I will rave on the top of a hill about this book, and I know you're reading it right now, but Mind Hacking Happiness by Sean Webb, volume 1 and 2. Run to the store and get these. Sean does such a good job at explaining our ego self versus our spirit self, and really how to tap into more of that spirit self. And it's written in a way that, a kindergartner could understand these concepts, which I love, because some of these personal development and spiritual books can be very lofty to try to read. And Sean writes it in such a beautiful way that's very foundational. And then book 2 goes much more into the esoteric spiritual side of things, when he had his own spontaneous awakening and kind of the Kundalini energy of all these knowingness coming through, the oneness of all, being all that is, being with all that is, etc. So get the book. Gosh, it's worth every single penny. And again, he deserves to be a freaking thought leader in the space because it's so good. But if you want to learn more about that, right, that's a great book to kind of begin to understand how to dissolve the ego. And again, practical steps, because a lot of us, I'm just tell me how to do it. I'm super analytical. If I know how, I will freaking do it. Just tell me. Sean will tell you. So take that book, run with it. It's great. So once that part of you begins to dissolve, you kind of become that knower of the experience, right? The observer of the experience, the knower, but not the humanness that is getting testy or getting triggered or getting whatever. It's almost like you're observing. And that was one thing, in my medicine journey that was so interesting. And again, I'm not telling anybody to do any kind of plant medicines or things, that was a part of my journey, but that's not something I feel I need to do more of. I had my experience, and I think, maybe if I'm called to it, but people can get trapped up in the psychedelics too. So that's a whole nother conversation. But it was like I had the ego death and I was the observer of my small self. And I just kept being like, oh, human needs to yawn. Okay, yawn for human. Oh, human needs to breathe. She should probably breathe. Breathe for human. She's still human. Like she needs you. And then you would be talking and I'm like, oh, human. Like, you're so analytical, human, and it was just so funny because I was the observer and I was just in such a place of bliss. And just like, this is what it is, right? And even that's an illusion, right? Psychedelics are an illusion to make us believe that we need any of that to tap into the divine. Can it help bridge that? Yes. And I think it can be an important part of some people's journey to remembering. But I know, even Ram Dass had done psychedelics and like hit this wall, just like chasing money. He was like, I'm not getting anywhere here. Like, I still have this longingness for more. And that's when he dove deeper inward and did a lot more spiritual inner work versus this external tools. And so, anyways, I say all of that to say that, you kind of begin to start shifting. And again, some of those tools can help you kind of just with the initial momentum, but you begin to shift into the I'm not my anger, but I'm aware of the anger within. I'm aware of that the anger's present. That's ego. I'm not the sadness. I'm aware that there's sadness happening, but I don't have to identify with it. And that sounds a little trippy and probably mind bending, but it is that like, oh, human Angie's having an experience of sadness. Something sad happened. Okay. Human Angie's going to grieve that. Human Angie's going to have emotions. And human Angie also has the tools to understand that's for a purpose. Like there's a bigger reason that these things are happening. And that was so apparent in my dad's passing. That was a catalyst for tremendous growth. That was written into the stars, all these things that happened. We like to believe we're the manifester of our universe, but if you kind of really step back, all this stuff has already happened. You and I have already had this conversation. This is already done. Like the books have closed. We're already divine. We're already back with God, whatever. But it's all playing out. And so we want to believe like we've got all these like abilities to control the universe and like our surroundings. But it's like, but there's a path that's already played out. And that goes into the holographic universe. Like this is twisty stuff I should probably not get into right now, but it's the illusion of control that we have. And so within that, when you have sad experiences come up, the ego is going to want to throw you a little trick and be like, oh, that's because you screwed up and that's your karma. And that's because you flipped off that person last week that this happened to you. And it's like, well, or it's a forgiveness opportunity. It's an opportunity to be like, oh, my ego got triggered. I'm going to surrender that and let it go. So, when we think about these things, even my thoughts, I love to talk about this with my clients, but again, it's a little bit heady sometimes that you're not even your thoughts, right? That's coming through the brain, that's coming through ego. So you're not your thoughts, but you are the sky, like you are the essence that holds all of them. So you're kind of that vessel that they flow through, but they're not yours. So when we think about this, hopefully this metaphor is kind of helpful, but you're not the clouds of emotions. Like you're the sky that holds them, right? So that goes back to the fish metaphor from last time. Like you're a fish in the ocean of possibility, of consciousness, whatever. And the little fishies coming through, they're just little clouds, they're just little thoughts, they're just little aspects of you. So again, I know that's probably a little bit like, huh? And it makes sense the more you embody this work and the more truly you have those. I'm reading a book, I finished it called The Dissolution or The Disappearance of the Universe, and it's also fantastic. But they talk about how, where was I going with this thought? I forgot it. It'll come back to me. But we were talking about the ego self, and I'm going to let that go because it'll come back to me. But we're really in this point of beginning to just, the miracles. There we go. So the more you tap into your divinity, the more you're on the spiritual path, the more you're going to have these miracles, which are the divine moments. So you're going to tap into the energy of what you and I spoke to when you were in Montana, when I was 15, also when I had the medicine journey. Like you'll have more miracle moments where you just are like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Like my world's a shit show to the outside, but man, it's so good. It doesn't matter. Like this is so amazing. And I've had a lot more of them lately, the more I've dissolved the ego even more. And it's not that, you and I don't still have egos. Of course, we're still on the path. And I don't know if we'll reach enlightenment this time, but we're on the path. And why the hell not keep trying? Why the heck not keep moving into that, because here's the thing, the more you disregard the ego, the more you undo that, the greater peace you have. And what do all of us want on this planet? We want to be content and be peaceful. Yeah, we can think that the money and the shiny crap is what gives us that, but that's not true at all. We want inner peace. And so the more you tease away the things that don't give you that, the more you just feel good all the time, regardless of how you physically feel, regardless of how the people around you are acting, regardless of whether or not you have a really nice home or a shack. It does not matter. So, anyways, I know that was a bit of a tangent, but I'll let you continue on here, Jess.
Yeah, well, I think you're talking about what we want to kind of talk about. It's, what are the natural qualities of like achieving that truer self? And sometimes we only get glimpses of it. And that's okay. It's only meant to show us like this. It's this. And then we can continue to sit in it. So it's that stillness. It's just the that quiet peace that comes through. And every now and then it just kind of leaves you in this place of not really feeling of the world. It's a really unique feeling. And it doesn't, I don't live in that space, but I've definitely had it many times. It's compassion for people that may harm you or have harmed you. It's not just compassion for the less fortunate, outwardly, or, animals. Those to me are like the easy ones. Those are the easy qualifiers. It's when you find compassion for the bully. It's when you find compassion for the person that is hurting so badly that they lash out and hurt others. And that is a different level of compassion, because that is God's compassion to us, which means you're embodying the essence within you. It's peace. I had that as an intention on my first journey with psilocybin. And I agree with you on what you're saying. It's a tool you can use in certain aspects. It's not a lifestyle, to me, but that was my first intention. And that's what I prayed on it. I meditated on it. And in that moment, I felt this profound sense of connectedness and the dissolution of good versus bad, right versus wrong. It was just this wholeness, and it was this breathtaking experience that will forever be a part of who I am. But that kind of peace exists as well when I do breath work, or sometimes when I'm doing yoga, or sometimes when I'm playing with my dog, or riding my horse, or socializing with a friend. Sometimes when I'm listening to your messages or I'm communicating to you, I feel that peace. Unconditional love without conditions. I think we, on the surface, we feel like we know what that is, but what does it really mean? And there's so many books out there, and I think of the book by Edith Egar, The Choice. You've read a similar book. She was a Holocaust survivor, and she walks through her time going through the most unimaginable things, and how she related to every moment in there. And truly, it was unconditional love for humanity at the end of the day that brought her from being a captivated person to a free one, with all the horror in between.
We can edit that part out.
Yeah.
I did a little bit.
That's fine. Okay. All right. And so another one that we should really pay attention to is a sense of unity with all life. And talk about like all the strain we see in the world right now where we have people of one religion against another person because of their religion or political beliefs or god forbid even the color of their skin or national origin or whatever it is. When we stop and just feel like that's not who we identify with anymore, that is just a natural evolution of getting in alignment with our truest self, because our true self, our highest self, our God self, it doesn't even know that. It doesn't even recognize that. That's not of it. And so, in all these things, I just want to really drive home the point though, because I know what our brain, everybody's brain right now, including my own, is doing. It's okay, I'm going to work harder to be more still, more compassionate, more of this, but this is not something that we achieve. That's the ego. These are natural occurrences. These are the natural side effects, if you will, of practicing just being mindful, slowing down, of integrating all the parts of yourself. These are just natural occurrences. So you don't have to go earn it. That's not what this is. And there's no shame if you're not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm there sometimes and I'm not there other times. There's no shame in that. That's the ego trying to say, well, look at you. You failed again. You can't do it. You're never going to get there. It's just a cesspool. And so these are not things that we have to earn. This is something that we already are. And it's just allowing it to come out. It's just, that's all we have to do is just allow it to come out. You don't become more peaceful and still and all that. You just stop identifying with the parts that aren't. You just stop saying, I am chaotic. I am anxious. I am angry. You stop using the I am statement. And in our last podcast episode, we talked about that. I talked about that where, it's not the affirmation necessarily, it's the belief behind it. And that's why it's so important that you watch those words and ask those beliefs, test those beliefs, because when we say things in the I am way and we truly are feeling the emotion of it, guess what? We are just going to reaffirm that around us. And it's the ego just going, ha ha ha, I'm back in control. And so that's kind of the work. It's just pattern interrupt, like you had said, and allowing the natural beauty of alignment shine through.
And anything that keeps us in duality is of the ego. So anytime, as you said, good, bad, light, dark, and I don't know about you, but so many in the New Age community are like, there's dark forces running the planet. And it's like, well, hey, but we're all one. Stop it. Like, that's some New Age mumbo jumbo. And I've been there. I was in that phase for a hot minute and I'm coming out of it to the light here. But it's like all of that keeps us in this state of polarity. And that's not truth. And, even God speaks to I am. That's it. I am. Like, that's it. Nothing after, nothing before.
You
I
just
am.
am.
That's it. I just am. Like, I am. I am the OG. Like God is the OG. So it's about, yeah, if you see anything that's pulling you into a state of judgment of others, that's keeping you in that ego state. And again, we unconsciously are doing this. So this is also not something to be like, shame on you for that, because you and I do, and we're still in that phase of letting go. And, the ultimate attainment is really, that of like the Jesus state. He was able to withstand being put on the cross and crucified. And first of all, not feeling it, which is not talked about in the Bible. It's portrayed as this torturous, horrible thing.
Mhm.
He was so disconnected from the body as his truth, that he did not have pain. And trust me, that's going to trigger a lot of people who were indoctrinated into those beliefs. So trigger warning on that. But when you attain such a state of enlightenment, you are no longer your body. You are awake outside of the dream, which is why, people would poke at him on the cross and he would just smile at them with compassion because, he would have this deep awareness of, forgive them for they don't know what they do. They don't realize we're not a body. They don't realize we're not here as we think we are in this state. The ego wants it to hurt. And I mean, there's countless people that walk on glass, walk on fire, walk on whatever. And they're in such a state of high vibration and frequency of knowing their trueness that they don't feel pain. And that is transcending the body. And that is the ego's kind of final lesson, is the release of the body. And I'm not quite there yet, I feel like I have a purpose on this life. No, if it happens, so be it. That's the path. But I'm not quite at that level of enlightenment. And so, this is all a process of undoing. So when we talk about undoing the process of ego, there are some things that can obviously help. I love reading and learning. That's led me to a lot of really deep rememberings. So for me, learning is a great way, but it doesn't still my mind. My little analytical mind loves all the knowledge, loves to get excited about this stuff and all these things. Meditation is a really fantastic way, and it doesn't have to be this perfect practice. You and I have been meditating for some time, and it's still hard. I'm not gonna lie. My little monkey mind wants to go ballistic. Sometimes it's like the freaking symbols are banging and it's like, hey, pay attention over here. You got this to make for dinner. You got to make sure you submit the kids, paperwork for school and blah, blah. And it's like, okay, just bring it back. And all you do is just gently bring the mind back. I personally find it easier to do meditation with a little bit of gentle music, just because my mind, it's a focus point for me to kind of just surrender more versus just dead silence. But as you mentioned, meditation can also be done in, breath work. It can be through yoga. It can be through a guided meditation. It can be through walking. Meditation can be done in a lot of different ways. And it's really about kind of that mindful practice. So it doesn't have to be a specific thing you do. There's also this process of self-inquiry. And I think you and I do this in our own ways. Who am I? And it's not to get to the mental answer, because the mental answer is like, well, I'm a female, I'm a mother, I've birthed children, I am college educated, I am a nurse turned hypnotist, I am a wife, I am a blah, 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 blah. No, but you keep peeling it back. Okay, but I'm not those things. I am on the surface. Like Angie, human form is. Who am I beneath that? And it's just kind of this well, I'm loving, I'm compassionate, I'm whatever. Okay, those are characteristics. Even deeper than that. And again, kind of mind bending to try to peel all those layers back. But it's interesting. You're basically just piercing the illusion. That's all that is meant to do. It's not meant to give you this baha of epiphany. It's just piercing the illusion of what you're not, really. This is another practice I do too. And I think you're really good at this as well, is mindful living. Just taking those moments when you're on a walk to be like, wow, it is so beautiful out. What a day. And you just kind of still the noise. You stop all the chatter in the brain. For the moments when you're with your dog, or I'm with my kids and they're in pure joy, and I'm like, wow, how cool. Life is cool. Yeah, it's all an illusion, it's a whatever, but man, it's cool. It can also be an enjoyable experience while we're here. So you can have those moments while you're getting ready for the day, while you're taking a shower and just paying attention to how nice the water feels on your skin, or as you're walking, how your body feels, and the gratitude that your body can do what it's doing and moving in a way it moves. So that can be a lot of different things. And then surrender. So that is my absolute favorite thing. And I remember years ago, my first coach was like, you just got to surrender. And I'm like, how? I will, but how? What do you mean? And so as I started to learn, because again, I'm very analytical. Don't just tell me to do something. I will, but tell me how to do it. And it is the surrender is in the pattern interrupt. So again, if you want a really simple way to begin diving into this work, pattern interrupt. Simply become aware of your thoughts. And how you can start to do that even more beginner is your emotions are your cue. So if you suddenly feel angry, it's like, oof, hold on. What was I thinking? Okay, I felt like it was unfair that. Okay. And then you just start to tease it apart. It felt unfair that. And again, Sean Webb's book, he talks a lot about how to do this, how to interrupt pattern in an even better way. And then you just begin to become more aware of the emotions. So every time I have a really big emotion that's good or not good, those are like big triggers of like, ooh, what's happening now? Okay, tune in. Nope. All right, we're going to shift it. We're going to acknowledge we're frustrated. That's okay. And I'm going to forgive it and I'm going to carry on. And then my brain might quickly yap back at me again, but that wasn't fear though. And then it's like, yep, and it's okay. We're going to move on. And you kind of are like self-parenting, like you would a child who's really having a tantrum, right? They don't have emotional regulation. They don't know how to self-soothe. Your brain's a lot like that. It's like a little tantruming child. So pattern interrupting and really just kind of beginning to analyze your thought will help you surrender a lot more. And again, these things build. So what's going to happen is you're going to start surrendering the smaller things, the little minor frustrations of what happened in traffic, the disagreement where you felt unheard in a meeting and someone said something that triggered you. And then you're going to be able to do that in bigger and bigger things, right? So like, I don't know why I had to file bankruptcy, but I know there's a reason. And I have to trust that this is happening. I don't know why I lost my house or my spouse died or whatever. And I'm going to go through the process of grieving because it's valid and I can. And I'm going to surrender it. And you just continue and, you can navigate those things more, but it takes practice. It takes moving kind of those smaller boulders first consistently to build the muscles to do the bigger things, and again, it's not to say that these aren't easy, these are easy things to do. They're not, and we're still going to have emotion, right? But when we know the truth of what we really are, who we really are, it just makes all of it not as threatening, right? So, um, I'm just gonna, so those are some of the great things. There's probably, there's a ton more, that can help cultivate awareness. Qigong, as you mentioned, yoga, hypnosis can also help with that. There's a lot of different practices. So find what works for you. There's going to be a lot of different things. It can also be meditative to be in flow state of, if you're a runner, that was always a meditative practice for me where I would really get into the flow and connection. So there's so many ways people can access this and it's going to be unique to you. So it's not a practice of self-improvement. That's the David Goggins mentality of I've got to get better, bigger, more, blah, blah, blah. But it's a remembering. So again, it's peeling back the layers of the things that you are not to reveal more of what you are.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the way Sean Webb, kind of talks about it. And I can't remember who he was talking about when he said it, but, a lot of what you just covered. And the point is we're trying to stay in the present moment because our brain, once those like old reoccurring thoughts, the old hurts, all those things come back, it re-triggers us as if it's now. And it's trying to get back to that place, that remembering of like, no, now I'm safe. And so he used the teaching of somebody else. I can't believe it's not coming to me right now, but just whenever those thoughts start to creep in, it's oh gone. That's gone. That's done. That's gone. That's already gone. That's gone. We're back here. And I think that that is a tool, I've definitely used in meditation or just when I'm just humming along and I'm doing good. And then all of a sudden, what? Like, why is that creeping in? No, gone. That's done. I'm here now.
Mm.
I'm right here.
Yeah,
And so,
it's the quickest way to get rid of depression and
yeah,
anxiety. So, I reflect, I don't know if you guys are old enough who's listening to remember this, but Tom Cruise like jumping on the couch of Oprah, that was, I believe, the episode where he also said depression was a bunch of BS.
yeah,
And I'm like, I agree. So here's the thing. I've studied a lot of functional health. So I will say there are physiological reasons, gut health and otherwise, that you can have depression or anxiety that are hormonal for sure. The predominant part of the population though, it's a mindset thing.
mm,
And so, it is kind of like that stop it. Like stop it, be present. Stop it, stop perseverating the past. Stop worrying about the future. Be here now. So I just wanted to interject that. And I know that may be a little bit of tough love, but that's the reality. And that was my epiphany in 2020 was like, oh my God, it's been my mind like this whole time. And then I realized some of the symptoms I had were cortisol, like some of the anxious feelings I have are related to cortisol. But the mind spiral, that was completely within my control. And
yeah,
so if you're someone who's struggling with any of that, stop it.
yeah,
Like, I'm kidding. I say that with love and embrace you and say, like, just you got to work on repatterning the brain because that's just the brain doing what the brain has done. It's not a reflection of your willpower or lack thereof. It's simply the pattern the brain has played out for a long time,
yeah,
whether it's living in the past, living in the future. you and I have been on both sides of it, with living through trauma and all these different things. And that's not the end of your story. So, retrain the brain to be present. And it's not easy. That was some of the hardest freaking work I did, truly. And not everybody's ready for it because we want to be the victim. We want to have people pander over us and feel bad for us and all the things we've been through. But it's like, well, that's boring. That gets boring real fast. So people really wanted the hero story of how you overcame it so you can help them overcome it. So, anyways, I'm sorry. You were saying.
No, I mean, tough love or not, I mean, it's the truth. So play around with it however you want. Take the long way, take the short way, take the harder way, try to bypass, do it. I dare you, and I welcome the journey because you will grow in it, but it's not tough love. It's just truth. I've messed around and found out, so to speak. So, um, so let's just talk about what like that non-duality interconnectedness, because that's what we're really going for. That's why we're talking about the ego. That's why we're talking about this, because what people really want when they go buy the thing or they try to achieve the thing, what they're really trying to get though is that satisfaction, that deep satisfaction. And you're never going to get it outside of yourself. But once you start to get it inside yourself, it might just happen in tiny little pieces, and you start to see the world so differently, and you start to see people so differently. And it happens slowly, FYI, because you're still going to be surrounded in circumstances, people, whatever it is that was part of that other identity that you had adopted. So when we talk about the glimpses, we are really talking about just kind of like a little flash frame, and they get a little longer. Suddenly you're watching a sitcom, and then it's a movie, and pretty soon it's a novel that you're reading in your life. But your awareness deepens. Your self-awareness will get so deep. And that's going to look like, it's going to look like accountability at first. And it's not in a way that is meant to shame you, but instead it's ooh, yeah. Like I see how that unfolded and my role in that. Right. And it's this illusion that starts to just kind of thin and fade out of they are doing it to me. Like, who is they? Who are you and who is they? They and us. It's this whole illusion of God's up here and I get on my knees and I pray to him. And it's this illusion that it's all just not true. And so that all begins to separate and thin, and it will trigger you. It'll trigger old wounds. It'll trigger old beliefs. It'll trigger your ego. But that's your glimpse. When you start to hear the conversation and be like, that doesn't resonate with me internally anymore. And instead it feeds maybe some part of your ego. And it makes you want to participate because your ego's like, oh, look we have a group of people we can share this with. That's your sign. That's your glimpse. You realize that you're not just this drop in the ocean. You realize that you're not just this little being on an island alone with 100 other little beings on an island alone. You are the literal ocean. And in that, and what I mean by that is it's that compassion we talked about. It's that connectedness. It's feeling like it is all you and you are all it. You are a piece of the whole and the whole at the same time. Like that's a mind bender for you. The dualities, they start to collapse. Like I said, it's that right versus wrong, good versus bad, self versus other, they versus them. All of that kind of stuff just it makes me laugh. It makes me laugh. I was just telling you, I was driving around and I saw protests out on the side street, and I get these little intrusive thoughts, and I'm like, my ego just wants to like poke at it, but it's because I find it humorous. And then I also feel bad. I feel bad that people are living in this state of turmoil all the time. And so I get kind of flooded with different things, but ultimately I smile and I keep going because none of it feels personal to me, and none of it changes me on any level anymore. I don't feel like I'm part of the wrong side of the fence, or, and I don't feel like they are either. We're all just humans. That's a great sign. Okay, this one's a big one. And this one can trigger people if you're in the earlier stages. It still can trigger me sometimes. Everybody is reflecting back to you. And sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I love this about this person. Guess what? That's a mirror too. It is something within you that's there. But likewise, when that person just ruffles your feathers a little bit, triggers your ego a little bit, it is because you are feeling your own conviction. You're feeling it within yourself. And you know what? It's a great indicator light to where you need to maybe explore a little bit. Like, why is that there? So instead you will start to see people though as a mirror instead of a threat, and it'll lead you down that pathway of, okay, this kind of grated against me. Was it their confidence that made me feel insecure? Was it their looks that made me feel less attractive? What was that? It's very human stuff, and it's totally okay. Um, pain is met with compassion and not resistance. It's okay to hurt. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to feel pain. But when you suddenly feel physical, mental, heart aching grief pain, and you find yourself going, okay, like, I'm going to let this burn, and I'm going to have compassion for myself in this moment or somebody else. That's a real big sign that you're letting the duality go. You're letting go of the idea that pain is bad. And I learned that lesson with you. Actually, I had a very profound moment of, it was about self-abandonment. Pain equaled me leaving myself. That was a big struggle. So when you start to embody some of these things, you're going to start to see the glimpse, and you're going to start to maybe realize that there's no separation. There's no seeker. There's no sought. I think that's a beautiful way to say it. There's only presence, and they appear as both. It's like you're all of it. It's really complex, but it's such an awesome thought. Meditate on that. See where it brings you.
Yes. Yes. Oh, we could just talk about this forever. This is like my absolute favorite, like, series of episodes we've done thus far,
Yeah.
because we're in it, we're growing through this. And again, it's so fun to have the listeners, from one to now. Like, you and I have evolved so much in the last 6 months. And I don't mean that with ego. I mean, like, the fast pace of everybody growing right now is just stupendous. It's so amazing. And these conversations are fun because it's like, yes, this makes sense. Those conversations and I are having are like, yes, this is what my soul is screaming about. It was never about the manifestation or the, light versus dark forces or the Illuminati versus this and that and the other. It's like, it's all just happening as an experience, and we can choose to buy in or not. It doesn't matter. Like, choose your suffering. So some of the practices, though, again, we've talked a little bit about how to kind of get into this more, but some of the practices, I'd love to just kind of leave you with here are practice presence, at least once a day. Heck, even just put your hand on your heart and just be like, breathe in, breathe out. Just feel your breath, put your hand as you notice the warmth of your skin, the gentleness of your heartbeat. It's just so grounding to just kind of practice just a little bit. I am here now, and I teach my clients this, like, it doesn't have to be a big thing. And the more you do this kind of practice, the more you anchor in that calm too. So I teach my clients about anchors, and they're physical things you can do that can recreate an emotion or an experience in your body. You can train your brain to anchor your hand to your heart as a down regulation of your nervous system calming experience, to be present now. So if you like that, use it. And you don't have to analyze anything, you can just be too. You don't have to even think about the heart, the warmth, the whatever. I like to because it grounds me in my body now. It grounds me in the moment to just kind of be. But you can just let it be meditation where you're just thoughtless. And that's also friggin' awesome. And reflect even on this question: what is here when I stop trying to be anything at all. So like, I'm not Angie the hypnotist. I'm not Angie the podcaster. I'm not Angie the mom. I'm just here. What is that? And I had that a while back where I was like, oh my God, without the influence of social media, who am I? Like, I have been so influenced by like what I've seen and what I've thought that my identity's been a part of that. And it was like, oof, yikes, let's peel that back. But then there was almost self-judgment, but that was a part of the path of like growing and evolving too. So, reflect on like, who are you? Who are you? And then, choose an anchor, so we talked about the hand on the heart anchor, but it could be something that's as simple as like brushing your teeth in the morning. It could be you and I drinking our coffee, and just bring total awareness to it. Be with that moment, drinking your coffee, like, wow, this is lovely. It's warm. It's enjoyable. I feel really nice. Something, just be there in that moment. Because so often, and I am super guilty of this, we rush through our day because we've got lots of things to do. And I'm not as mindful as I could be. And that's okay. That's a part of my growth experience, but it's just those simple little things. And you can even just kind of say silently, like, this is enough. Like, I am enough. I have enough. It's all enough. It's all okay. Everything is, has been, and will always be okay. Just kind of grounding in that energy. So, in wrapping up this episode today, you've spent a lifetime becoming the identity of who you are. From the moment you were born on this planet, you were slapped a name, a social security number, identifying factors about you, whether you were a fussy baby or a peaceful baby or whatever, whatever, whatever. You've spent all this time like becoming the identity of this person. And what if this next aspect of your journey is about untethering all of that, undoing it all? Because those were all constructs, by the planet, by those around us. And it really is about tuning back into the totality of who we are. And again, like real peace comes. And, you and I tap into that more and more lately where we're just content as we are.
Yeah.
There's nothing outside of us that we need to do. There's no amount of shopping or new clothing or trips or other things that could make our experience any more valuable. Those are fun bonuses, but none of that matters beyond the peace we have within. And so, really tuning into like that, being okay with where you are in your journey, that it's perfectly perfect and that you're being guided, that this is not the end of the journey. It's really the welcoming in of a whole new way of being. And it's freaking magnificent. And again, to someone who maybe isn't on the path, maybe I sound like a total lunatic, but man, it's so good over here, just to be in a profound state of peace. But it didn't come overnight. You and I have been to hell and back, air quote from the outside. We've been through a lot. And I'm so grateful for all of it because I would not be the person I am today or be the undoing of the person I am today without all those experiences. So, you're moving into the energy of a being, of the essence who doesn't have to strive to matter, that you already belong to everything. And that peace is not a pursuit, but it's really a part of the essence of who you already are. And we are anchoring that in hardcore. And if you're not there, follow along because we're going to continue to anchor this energy. And, you're going to get there. And it takes a community. You and I don't do this stuff alone. We have each other. We have others that we are very close to who we can have these conversations with, because this is the conversation that 0.0000001% of the population are having. And I don't mean that with ego. I mean that with you and I have made a solid commitment to our growth and are committed every single day to doing that. And our conversations reflect it. And I think that would be one hell of a killer book to write about all of our voice memos, because again, man, it's a wild journey to reflect back. And even, a year and a half ago, how differently we were at that point. Like it's just quantum leaps in our journeys for everybody. So as we wrap up here in our final episode, which again is a part of this five episode series, we're going to explore what it means to really live in that state of that true self. So Sean Webb speaks of it as like the big S self, so our essence, our soul self, our spirit self, whatever you want to call it, but not just in meditation, but in the really beautiful and messy days of life, like how to, as Jesus says, be in this world, but not of this world, because that really is the hard work. That's the work of like, how do you embody this despite everything happening around you? And that's really what I want for others. And I hope for others rather, because it's a different set of peace. You and I see it, especially on social media. The ego is just driving the ship in so many situations where people are just outraged about a lot of different things happening, or really happy about things happening and just blasting their egoic thoughts on it, which again, fine. I was that person too. I guarantee if you look back on my Facebook, you'll be like, shut up, hypocrite. But I'm being a lot more contemplative about what I'm putting out because I'm integrating a lot right now. And that's, a part of that too is at every phase of your development, you're going to have a period of kind of cocooning where you're going to be integrating a lot of new things. And I think, you and I are in like a really profound integration period where we have this safe container within the podcast to talk about this. And I'm not ready to bring it to social media yet, because I don't know how to talk about it like that. Because these are really kind of high level concepts that are a bit mind bending. And, if I would have tried to dive into this stuff a year ago, I would have probably been like, huh? I wouldn't have been ready for it. So, follow along with us. We're diving into more next time. And again, if you have suggestions for additional podcasts or want us to dive into certain areas deeper, please let us know because this is just so fun and we're all learning together. So
Yeah, we are. And yeah, I'm excited for the next one because life isn't perfect. And trying to do this in less than ideal situations is probably a stumbling block for a lot of people. And so that's going to be a good one. Don't miss it.